First phase in Togaf is preliminary phase. In preliminary phase, today we will look into objectives, steps involved, inputs, outputs, and a real-time example of retail. In the description below, there are links for the playlist of all Togaf and enterprise architecture related videos. If you are preparing for Togaf or want to learn more on enterprise architecture, it will be definitely helpful. I'm trying to depict enterprise architecture concepts with real-time things in my best possible way. If you are interested in any other topics, leave me a comment. If you have reached to this section of my video, I would assume that you are interested in these videos. So please like, share, and subscribe this channel. Thank you. I hope you subscribed. Now that's done. Let's move forward. Objectives. What are the objectives in preliminary phase? There are two major objectives that are in preliminary phase. The first one is determine the architecture capability, where we are going to determine what is the current architecture capability, and then we will be establishing the architecture capability for our target architecture. What is organization context for enterprise architecture? So before starting architecture work, you must understand the environment in which organization operates. Where are we now? Who is impacted with these changes? Why are we doing enterprise architecture? So these questions are to be answered. To get the answers for these questions, we will be looking into different aspects like business environment. In business environment, who are the customers? How the markets are running? Who are your competitors? What should be the strategy? Are objectives defined? What kind of KPIs are you looking for? And what is your operating model? So there are so many challenges around business environment. If you ask these questions and you get answers for them, then you are good with the business environment setup. And then internal organization. How many departments are there in the organization? And what are the roles, key roles those departments are playing? How is the reporting structure in those departments? Who is at leadership? And how or who making the decisions? What is the culture and ways of working? These are all the questions in the inside internal organization. We have to get the answers so that we can shape up and we can bring up the architecture capabilities. And then comes other aspect, process and capabilities. Core business processes. What are the core business processes of the organization and how are they achieved in the current system? What the organization is good at? What is the best selling point of organization and where gaps are existing? So for understanding the gaps, you need to understand the current process and capabilities, and then you should have a target process and target capabilities, and then understanding the gaps between those current and target in a list, and then fulfilling them will provide the process and capabilities for the organization. And the next one comes technology landscape. Yeah, what are the existing systems, whether they are going manually or they have a portal, are they on mobile, are they are on desktops only? What is their data and how the integrations are there with their other systems, and what technical standards are available right now, and what IT skills and resources are there. So whether you have the capability of all the skills that are required to run the technology landscape has to be understood. Governance and compliance, policies, regulations, security, and risk management. These are all very important to in order to be compliant and to achieve the greater governance. Approvals and funding process are to be understood so that so that we can go forward and do the things that are planned. Constraints and opportunities. So understanding the budget limits, legacy systems, and how the new markets are running, and what kind of digital transformation opportunities are available. So understanding all these kind of things will give you a idea of how to establish the architecture capabilities. Once we understand the organizational context and how the elements are placed inside the organization and what kind of frameworks or project management tools are used, then we will get to know what kind of capability maturity is in the current system and what we need to establish for the target system. And then we will work towards defining the org model that would be suitable for the target architecture. And we will establish processes and resources, all these things according to the target architecture. We'll select the tools and we will implement those tools according to the target architecture. And then defining architecture principles on which the organization has to run is also defined. So asking all these questions in the areas like business, technology, process, capabilities, governance, compliance, and what kind of opportunities or what kind of constraints are very, very important. If you ask those questions, then you will get answers. And according to those answers, we can establish the architecture capability. So we now know the objectives and we have asked a lot of questions, and then we are in the process of establishing the target architecture. So for that, we have few steps which will be helpful in establishing the architecture capability. Number one, scope the enterprise organizations that are getting impacted. So it defines which business units or stakeholders or processes or the systems, locations, and people who will be impacted by the architecture work. All the entities that are going to get impacted by this architecture work. It will answer who and what will change. So this step will answer you. If you work on this step, it will answer you who and what will change. And it will help you in preventing misalignment of roles using the skills existing in the organization or the new skills acquired, and misalignment of processes. So the process would be streamlined and acts what is required for the target architecture. Unexpected resistance that come from stakeholders. If you understand the stakeholder and their priorities and the stakeholder map, then you can avoid the resistance that comes from the stakeholders. And it will also help you in scope creep with identifying important needs, and their having their prioritization will help to keep the scope intact. And this step, scope the enterprise organizations impacted, will help you and will deliver you a value in defining the boundaries, and stakeholders know how they are involved and what are their involvement will be. And because everybody is involved, approval and budgeting will become easy. Second step, confirm governance and support frameworks. This step ensures that EA work is supported by decision-making authorities, ownership roles, policies, standards, funding and escalation mechanisms. So by supporting the authorities and decision-making, uh, it will provide a value, and also it will give you the mechanisms to fund it and escalate it if when it is required. So confirm governance and support frameworks will answer you who approves and where the funds are coming from and who is ensuring the compliance and how are we auditing it and what rules we follow. So these answers we will get if we work on confirm governance and support frameworks. The third step is define and establish the enterprise architecture team. You establish an EA team to ensure ownership of the architecture work is followed, and there are skill roles and responsibilities, and all those roles are the people who having the roles are playing the responsibilities, and clear accountability and decision making is happening, and then the continuous support from all the stakeholders for the project to progress and the governance to improve will be established through the enterprise architecture team. And this must happen before architecture work begins. Next is for identifying architecture principles. Every organization follow on some principles. These principles will guide them in making the decision making process easy. They are rules, you can consider them as rules, guidelines the organization agrees to follow when designing the solutions, and it should be consistent. They are to be consistent in order to get the quality and to align with the strategy. Next step is tailor Togaf and other architecture frameworks, if any existing in the organization. Togaf is a generic framework, so it must be adapted and it can be customized as well according to the organization. Togaf is a generic framework. It can be adapted by any business environment, any culture, any maturity, any delivery methods, whether it is agile, DevOps, SDLC, lifecycle model, industry compliance, and whatever the project size and scope of the project might be. The goal here in tailoring TOGAF is use what fits, drop what is needed, and what's missing. So whatever is fitting to your organization, use that one from the TOGAF and drop and remove whatever is not required. After tailoring, TOGAF fits the organization instead of forcing the organization to fit TOGAF. So this is the mantra. TOGAF fits the organization instead of forcing the organization to fit TOGAF. Architecture is faster, more relevant and actionable while you are considering the point of organization view. And delivery teams will adopt to EA because it works for their cadence. The governance will become lightweight and it will become effective. So that's why the tailoring of the framework and tailoring with TOGAF will help in organizations development. The last step is develop strategy and implementation plans for tools and techniques. To ensure the EA enterprise architecture practice has to have right tools, right methods, and right platforms for modeling the architecture, for modeling how the data is, how the organization is, and how organization has to operate, and to manage the roadmaps so that the short-term vision and the long-term mission and all those business drivers or business principles to achieve with delivering the roadmap on time, and then supporting the governance, how the work is going on and whether things are all falling into place or not, whether we are compliant, all the standards are uh, maintained or not, and then deliverables are achieved or not. So all kind of governance, for the support of governance, EA practice has a lot to involve. And then maintain all the repository of whatever the decisions you're making, whatever the deliverables that are part of, whether it is a documentation of any process you're doing, or establishing, if you're defining any architecture principles, all those things. So everything, whatever is output, whatever is a deliverable of the steps that are being followed, has to be put in the repository so that it will be useful for the future needs. And then integrate everything with the delivery team so that delivery will be very smooth. So the value of having a strategy and implementing it will enable efficient and consistent architectural work. So that being said, let us look into a real-time example where the context is a supermarket chain with 200 stores, and now they want to use enterprise architecture and build an enterprise architecture for them. So there are few things which are, like we discussed, we have to ask questions, right? So there are few things where there are challenges for that organization. Like in business environment, computers are having online shopping, but whereas our organization is still manual, and customers want home delivery and mobile apps. So that's how the market is, and our organization has to implement that. And the strategy is to grow online sales by 30% in 2 years. So the existing, whatever the sales is, it has to be improved by 30% in 2 years. And then there is an organizational structure, that's an information we are getting, like sales, supply chain, inventory, and IT. These are organization capability right now. And what processes and capabilities are there in the current state? Inventory checked manually, yeah, so it's manual. Separate ordering systems, so there are order systems, but they are all separate, they are not integrated. And no real-time stock visibility. There is no real-time stock visibility, so they can't know what is the status of warehouse. And technology landscape. There's a legacy, the old. So the system is there, but it's a very old system where the point of sale system is very, yeah, legacy. And warehouse management system is outdated. So it's a very old software that they are using for warehouse management. And some cloud deployments are there, but no integration. They do have an online system, but it is very old and not integrated properly. And the governance and compliance. So payment security, PCI, DCS, and data privacy, additions made by CEO alone, so slow approach. So all the complaints and all there, but it has to be fast enough. The workflow has to be generated in a proper way. And then constraints and opportunities are there, like legacy POS tightly coupled. So it is very tightly coupled with the system and you cannot separate it. There is no flexibility and limited budget for major replacements. So this is what the context is provided to us. So we are not going to solve this problem in this phase alone. But what we are going to do is the major output of this phase is we will establish an architecture board where we will have people like CIO, head of sales, supply chain finance, and all the departments involving on the business that we are talking about. And then we'll create a roadmap where we will say inventory visibility. We have no visibility on real-time stock, so inventory visibility. And then online ordering and delivery. So we are going to establish online ordering and delivery right now, and customer loyalty and analytics. If we frame these KPIs, then we will better understand how to improve the sales, and then we can achieve our 30% in coming 2 years. And in order to do or perform these things, and we are going to follow some principles, that is reuse before buy. So if you are going to buy something, try to see if you already have such tools or equipment and reuse them, and buy before build. And when you're trying to build something, see if you can buy it and will it be cheaper than build option. There are cloud first. There are already some cloud deployments, but they are not integrated. So the cloud first is the approach has to be taken, and then it has to be API driven integration so that there will be no tight coupling. And then the target architecture, what we are going to achieve at the end of the architecture work would be central product inventory so that visibility will be high, and microservices for order, payment, delivery, so that there is be no tight decoupling. And we will have mobile and web apps for customers so that customers can sit in the home and order, and then they can get whatever they want. So this is the example of preliminary phase. I hope the idea of a preliminary phase and what it wants to achieve is clear. Please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching the video.